annexations before
Oh,
and
we
after.
have
use.
Right,
to do
personal.
that.
The mics are coming, everything's coming on.
Tell me when we're ready, please. Okay, I'll call to order the meeting of the Economic Development Committee, and I'll turn this over to Tricia Newcomer to lead the conversation.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So you have before you a request to review and consider a potential fee reduction for a proposed annexation of the Sunrise Motel, which is located at 22512 Sussex Highway. It's tax map and parcel 331 3.00-180.00. I think everybody's kind of familiar where Sunrise Hotel is. And we have with us this morning Seaford Shah, and he's going to come up and everybody has his request. If you want to just give a little bit of background of where you are, what your plans are, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, everybody knows where the property is. It's been in town forever. I don't know. What do you want me to do?
Just kind of run down your project request.
Okay, sure. I got it now.
You got it?
So, if everybody remember the property about, I don't know, like 6-7 years ago, before I bought it, everybody kind of knew what state it was in. Bought it, bring it up to what it is now. Took a lot of time, effort, of course the money, and wanted to expand a little more. So here we are.
Yep.
So just to clarify, if you don't mind, what you'd like to do upon annexation, you'd like to interconnect the existing building to water and sewer, which is it 22 rooms or 20 rooms existing?
It was 20 to begin with. Now
Okay.
we found out there is a little more space as far as the setbacks wise, so we could do 22 now.
Okay, so you would intend to add an additional 22 units?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'll drop by the updated site plan soon.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we meaning the city, our building official provided Sapon with what the existing fee and rate structure would be minus the electrical infrastructure. None of that is included in that. You each have a copy of that, and it's roughly estimated around $64,383.48. And he is seeking relief based on your initial ask, basically requesting relief on the existing fees, which would be the existing fees. I think would take his fees down to about $36,000 if we only charged on the new cost.
From 64 to
From
36?
64, correct.
Okay.
Now, Charles and I,
If I can interrupt
Go ahead.
you for
Sure.
a second.
Absolutely.
In a nutshell, I was asking to tie in the existing building, kind of grandfather in, and then just go with the newer one. That will help me tremendously, because we are still talking about in hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring up the water and sewer lines up to the property, which is about a half a mile from existing point that we wanted to connect,
Which would be your responsibility, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
which would be mostly my,
Yep.
yeah.
so if everyone remembers, in 2019, this body actually considered some incentives for Middleford Road when we were discussing the potential annexation of those properties in that area, and some of the incentives that we wanted to put forth to see if we could bring them on. And Charles and I, in discussing it, thought maybe for this particular project, and potentially consider it for all of the new 13 areas that are going to soon be serviced by water and sewer, this may be an opportunity for us to utilize that. And so what we did, just to remind everyone, for the Middleford Road, we agreed to provide, now this was specific to sewer, we're talking water and sewer with regard to this project, but in Middleford Road, we agreed to provide a sewer lateral connecting the property for the property owner at the city's cost. We also agreed to permit construction of all improvements on the lot at no cost, waived all impact and tap fees, if the connection was made within 24 months of the sewer installation. And this body decided to use the date of beneficial use as the date that the owners would need to connect. After that 24-month period, we agreed to provide 1 EDU credit to the property at that time. The 24-month, again, would begin at that beneficial use. And we decided also, should the property redevelop, the redevelopment occur after the 24-month period, the property owner developer would then have to create an ask for any fees reduction. We also determined that this was transferable with the balance of the remaining time. So we just thought maybe this might be an opportunity to use something similar on this project. And as I mentioned, also consider it for 13 as well. So
Okay. For the benefit of the board, can you please walk through this property currently is not in the city of Seaford? So
That is
right now,
correct.
we're discussing fees, but what is just to lay out the process for everybody here in the public?
Okay, so we've been working with the property owner for the last probably 18 months when he initially reached out to us about annexation. Trish and I went out, actually we took the Director of Electric and the Director of Public Works as well. We've outlined for the property owner what our timeline is for water and sewer. So he did stutter step a little bit and held off on the annexation, but he's recently submitted that, and that is working through the process. At the last council meeting, last Tuesday, we did appoint, which Councilman Henderson is the chair of, an annexation committee to review that process of annexation. In working with the property owner, these costs are so large it could make or break. So if he can't get this consideration from the city, he may withdraw his annexation.
Right.
So we're at a period right now where we have an annexation committee. They don't meet again until, I believe it's August 12th. And so depending upon how this processes, we can continue with the annexation, or the property owner has the opportunity to withdraw that request.
Perfect. Thank you. That helps everybody understand where we are in the process.
So question I have, we're not considering annexation at this time. We are only
we're
looking at
just
the fee.
the fees,
Okay.
correct.
You are correct.
And then ultimately, council will have, will make the recommendation, this body will make a recommendation to city council. We'll have to take it before them as well.
So what questions does this committee have in reference to the request of reduction in these fees?
Councilman Henderson, I have a question regarding the apportionment of the existing 22 units for the cost, because there are some common costs, like, the tap fee, that's a set fee. I'd like to know how you come up with the $36,000.
Yeah, I mean, Mike ran it through based on the information he had, which is limited at this time. Currently, I believe the existing facility is not sprinklered, correct?
No, it was according to the old code, so no.
So I presume, don't know this, I presume the new building will need to be sprinklered.
It
So
will have to be.
I think
So-
he did it on a 6-inch,
That's what was our WAG.
I think was his,
Yeah, we don't really know because all we have is kind of a rudimentary site plan. So these numbers are an estimate, a high-level estimate that'll be refined as we get additional plans as the project develops, if it's in our jurisdiction and our territory.
and
at
again,
some
totally
point.
not inclusive of any of the electric infrastructure.
Correct.
That's a whole different,
Correct.
This $64,383.48 includes all 44 units.
I believe that
Correct.
to be correct.
Right.
the new
So-
and existing.
Existing and new, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it would be, depending upon what the decision is ultimately of council, it would be a portion based on, assuming we connected the existing at no cost other than plumbing permit fees and all that, then we would look at the new development, do a calculation on that based on the plans that come in as we typically do, and that would be the charge that was developed at that time.
Did that answer your question?
I'm still trying to digest it. Because all I have is the single cost. I don't have the other costs in another column to see where the apportionments are. But I guess you're saying that it's not set in stone.
Not 100%. I mean, obviously, we can go out there, we can look at the existing facility, we can ask questions of the owner, what's the tap size, so on and so forth. We can pretty much nail that down. It's the new project, you know, we don't know the size of the sprinkler connection. We don't know if it's the final number of units that'll be developed based on setbacks or other approvals that occur. Part of this project is the elimination of the existing septic system and drain field that's on the property. So
Correct.
that'll have to be worked out as well. Ideally, you know, we're going to interconnect the new building and then abandon the septic and well on the site. But that'll come at potentially at 2 different times. It could happen at 2 different times. So we'll have to work with the property owner over the next few, you know, years, literally, until we get these utilities in place and get them extended.
I believe the majority of the numbers, the differences come in your impact fees, not the tap fees themselves, as well as the downstream sewer assessment and the electric cost recovery fee.
And maybe this helps, maybe, the way this is calculated, that hotel rooms are 0.33 EDUs per room, so a third of an EDU per room. So that's how the number is derived.
If I can just point out to the committee that hotels is a kind of has a nature, the building itself has a nature of using most of the utilities as far as the water, sewer, and electric and whatnot. So they will get impacted mostly compared to the rest of the, versus if you have a retail store. So it will have a biggest impact as far as the fees are concerned.
Other questions from the committee?
Can you help me understand the site where this building is going?
I don't think I've got.
We don't really have a great picture of it, but yeah, I mean, the building, when you drive up there, it's in an L shape,
Right.
okay? There's 2 buildings currently, so it'll go on the back of the property if you're standing in front of it on the
back
left-hand
of it.
side.
Okay.
It'll be a
Back
freestanding
left-hand
building,
corner.
yeah, so it'll kind of create, instead of an L shape, a C shape.
Okay.
It might help,
Let's go.
yeah.
Okay.
Joan's used to looking at site plans, that might really paint the picture for you a little better.
Okay. Okay.
Sherman's over here.
Uh-huh.
Where that's going to be located is where the current drain field is.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
that's one of the things that have to be dealt with during this development of this site.
And the city does not assume the cost for eliminating the drain field or any of that? That's not part of the
No, ma'am.
request, correct?
Not at all. The only thing we do is make the requirement that it's properly abandoned.
And I think the proposal talked about job creation.
He
Yes,
does
ma'am.
have in there.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. So, so basically, if we were to go out with the project, it's going to add, as we discussed, 22 more units. So as a whole project, it will. I'm projecting about, I think I put 5, but it should be around 6 full-time jobs and maybe 1 or 2 part-time jobs throughout the whole year, and it will result in about 30 to 35,000 annually towards the taxes and other fees to the city of Seaford for the lifetime of the building.
And are the jobs seasonal? It says seasonal?
Yeah, we're projecting 1 or 2 at least seasonal jobs, so meaning
I think those are
part-time
the
jobs.
part-time or the seasonal.
Okay, so what season are they revolving around? What are they dependent upon?
We can do most of the upkeeping of the buildings and things of those nature in like off season,
Oh,
versus doing it in summer, while, you know, we don't, you know, we get more time and more flexible to do it in off season while the rooms are vacant, so we can do the maintenance of the building then.
so your volume increases in the summer?
Yes, yep.
Okay, okay. Because your hotel is typically rented weekly, correct?
It was, but now, like I said, we have put in upwards of 700,000 right now, to bring it up to what it is.
Uh-huh.
So we want to keep it that way. We want to have, how would I say? We want to bring it up a level. So we would not want to have too much traffic as versus just somebody checking in for a weekend vacation versus somebody staying and living there. But in the off season, yeah, we might have to rely on just to get by in the winter time, yeah.
So basically, I guess just to clarify if my understanding is correct here, what the ask is this fee receipt here is based on 44 units, the existing units
Correct.
plus, and the request is to just make the fees on the new structure.
Correct.
Okay. And your timeline that you're looking to have all of this completed?
I mean, I'm ready to break ground right now.
You are. So you have all your permits and all?
No, I mean, I'm ready from my end, but we still have to go through the paperwork, yeah. So if everything goes according to the plan, then we could break ground before Christmas.
And he's also waiting on the city,
Right.
the water sewer
He's
availability
got
as well.
to annex
So,
in and,
at a neighboring property that's also extending water and sewer,
Okay.
the Lakeshore Motors property.
Okay.
So again, that goes back to that, you know, if we did it with a 24-month of date of beneficial use versus today's date, to
Have you
not.
made any submissions to the fire marshal or anything?
We're still a little too early for that.
Are your site plans complete and ready to go?
Site plan is 90% complete, except for that little change that we had to do where we wanted to add 2 more units. My architectural plan is, however, nearly complete.
Okay.
So that would be the next step, to go ahead and apply for the building permit and, you know, go to the DelDOT and the fire marshal and the conservation district and the city of Seaford and so on and so forth. But I wanted to make sure about, you know, I didn't want it to go too far and then
Understood. Yeah.
find out otherwise.
As the city manager mentioned, you know, this decision kind of determines whether he continues on with his annexation request.
Correct. The reason being the kind of property that we have, I wouldn't say it's a high-scale, upscale property. So I'm thinking about adding all those various costs. This is just the beginning. And like I said, there's at least $200,000-300,000 worth of additional cost before I can even break the ground. So kind of nature in the business I am, it will take a lot of years just for me to break even and then see any of the profit. So without the help, I don't see that project would make a lot of sense.
And how long does the annexation process take?
We've laid the timeline out currently on our best projection of timelines, assuming all the meetings occur the way they've laid out. We're hopeful to be done in October.
Any other questions from the committee?
I guess the only other comment I'll make is that, you know, should this committee want to consider something that Economic Development Director touched on, maybe you go back to that overhead picture. Currently, Sussex Highway north of the Duck Inn Car Wash is somewhat sparsely developed, and we are running water and sewer in that area. Our strategic plan as a city is to work with the Unified Sewer District at the county to, in essence, sewer the area. You know, certainly, staff can bring each of these requests back as they come up, and we can go through them one-on-one. But as we did on Middleford Road, if this committee would like to recommend to council to consider, in essence, a blanket statement around this, it really might be a good marketing tool to use. As the utilities get installed, you know, we can look at what's out there now, and then, I mean, there's currently where Lake Shore Motors is, they really need to get utilities to that location. At some point, it's likely to redevelop.
Correct.
So, you know, if we can work with these developers as they move forward. The other issue is this property owner, you know, he's dependent upon Lake Shore Motors to reduce his costs. So timing and planning are really of the essence on some of these projects. So that's just something I would put out to the committee. If you want to consider that, that might be an option.
I agree. Anything we can do to speed along development and not hang them up with coming in for a meeting if these are already pre-established
And, you know,
incentives.
not to add too much, but we are getting interest from property owners along this corridor in this, where Middleford Road, we got a little bit, but we didn't get the kind of interest, you know, I think we're getting in this area.
Maybe this will spur that back on, who knows? All right, if there are no other questions from the committee, I'll accept a recommendation.
I'm not prepared to move on the other properties to provide a blank statement. But, Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to provide a prorated fee schedule to exclude the 22 existing units and apply cost only on the 22 proposed new units.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a
Can
second?
I ask a question on the motion? Do you
Sure.
want to add a time frame of like the 24 months from beneficial use? Or do you just want to leave it as is?
Yeah, I think time is of the essence, so.
Well, to be
that's
consistent
probably
as
a-
well.
A good idea. I can reword that. I'll amend my motion to provide a prorated fee schedule to exclude the 22 existing units and apply costs only on the 22 proposed new units for a period of 24 months from certificate of beneficial use.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. So this is a recommendation that'll go to city council at the next council meeting, which is next Tuesday night. So you'll hear very quickly, or watch it online that night, and you'll have your answer pretty
I
quickly.
think
So
he said he would be here that evening as well.
awesome to answer any
I'll,
questions.
yeah, I'll definitely, if I'm able to, yeah.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being
Sure,
here.
thank you.
We'll follow
Good
up.
deal.
Okay, so while we are here together, we don't gather that much. Let's have a discussion about doing something consistent along these incentives all along Route 13 North to give the city something to market to those properties that are soon be coming online. Do you wish to consider putting something forward in front of council that would be consistent? I always think of my friend, Mr. Boyd, who's been pushing us to have consistent incentives on property so that we can market them, and this would be an opportunity to do that. We did not have that success on Middleford Road, but it was a great plan, and maybe this was a test run to get us ready for properties on Route 13.
Can you put up the Middleford Road again?
The Middleford Road, the verbiage,
Yes.
yeah. And again, Middleford Road was just sewer.
So we have, we have parcels on the east side of US 13 that are all within the city limits.
Yes, sir, all the way up.
All the
There
way
are
down-
two
Yeah,
parcels,
Binkley
Binkley
and
and Hurst, and what used to be, I think it was the Sussex Motel. Those two parcels are not. We
Okay.
kind of skirt around them,
But the
but
rest
everything
of it-
else is
Goes to
Old Furnace.
46.
46
And
Old
then we
Furnace
ac-
Road, and then
we
across
actually-
the street.
We actually go across, yeah, for a 33-acre parcel owned by J. Dolby.
Now, as far as the west side, the Sunrise Motel is actively seeking to be annexed,
Yes, sir.
and it stops at the proposed Lakeshore.
There's one parcel after that, correct?
Is it the paramedic station?
Well, the
That-
paramedic station is
right
not.
next to what
I
used to
can
be Brown, Kingdom Empowerment is there now. Is that?
Yeah, the
that
old Home
parcel in-
Depot site.
Yeah.
There's 3 parcels there. That's as far as we go on that, in that area between the alternate and the dual. And I will add, the mayor referenced the issue with the paramedic station. We have an agreement with them through the Unified Sewer District that once they're eligible to annex, they will, because they are interconnected. So, will be interconnected. But
This
as
still doesn't allow them.
as was referenced, yeah, they can't annex now because they're not contiguous, because across the street is Binkley and Hurst and the other parcel that's out, so.
So what's the status of the infrastructure improvements at this point? Because basically, you're going to have the sewer and water on the east side that'll be completed, but you've only got a short portion
On
that's proposed to go to
on the
Lakeshore.
west side.
On the west side. Yeah, right
So
now,
is it the intent to go parallel sewer lines across without crossing the
Yeah.
under 13?
yes and no. Okay, so water currently is just about installed. They actually charged the water main all the way to Chapel Branch yesterday, Burley reported at the construction coordination meeting. There is a crossing of water that goes across for,
Chapel Branch?
I'm sorry, it's.
Is it Clearbrook?
Clearbrook Branch,
Okay.
yes, I misspoke. There is water that goes across to feed the paramedic station. So ultimately, what we'd like to have is water looping on both sides and interconnected across. Sewer, we are still working through the financing arm of State Revolving Fund for that project. So right now, we don't have a timeline on that, but we're advancing it as quickly as we can. Unified Sewer District is in, so obviously, the lift station is on Dolby Farm, and we can get to those reaches with that. The plan is, as you suggest, right now, as developers extend, like Lakeshore Motors, like Sunrise Motel, we'll work with those developers to try to meet their needs to extend that to the best of our ability. At some point, we would be wise to consider, focusing on that. I would suggest maybe once we get the east side done, we can really look at the west side and try to do that as well, if that's our desire.
So what the plan would be in conjunction with laying of the sewer would be to install laterals at every parcel?
I would suggest that we do, yes, sir. Yeah, where we can. And that's what we've done with the water. We've tried to plan as we go, where we know a house is, where we know a business is, we take our kind of best guess at interconnection size. Now, we won't put in sprinkler connections for larger buildings. We just don't know where they'll fall, and they can be wet tapped in. But yes, sir, we'll try to provide interconnections where we can.
So like on a C2 property or C1 property, you would put an 8-inch lateral
For sewer?
for sewer?
For sewer. If we have some feedback from the property owner, we likely would, yes, sir.
What-
But if
what
we have
would-
none,
What would be the policy, like we ran all this and we put the laterals in and then the property gets subdivided?
Typically what we do, like for commercial, we try to get them to tie onto manholes anyway, so that's kind of a moot point there. But if we put one in and the property gets subdivided, then it's the property owner's responsibility to add the laterals that are necessary. And typically when they subdivide, you're going to get an extension on, those are large parcels, most of them, not all of them, but you're going to get an extension of main, gravity main onto the property, typically.
What are the pros and cons to the city of annexing in this additional lands?
There's a ton, okay? The pros are obviously, we can expand our boundaries. We can, our business is water, sewer, and electric. So water and sewer is pretty straightforward. Once we tie them on, we start to bill them, monthly water and sewer rent. Electric, we are allowed with our tariff and our agreement with DP&L, these are DP&L customers predominantly, we are allowed, once they're annexed, to amend our service territory and buy out the customer. So that is a decision at that time that the city council will make for an existing customer.
For each property
For each-
that's annexed?
Now, for existing customers. So if we annex a farm or an empty lot, or let's take this project, for example, we annex the existing building, the new building, we have the right to serve from that point forward with no buyout provisions. Gets a little tricky because you don't want two services on a site, but, so annexation and service is a way we can expand our electric business as well as our water sewer business. The other issue we get into, obviously, is police protection has to be extended. Our city codes, all the things that we do get extended. So, the staff has to do more, the police have to respond to more, so on and so forth. So there are those pros and cons at a high level. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
It does. I mean, I was curious particularly about the police department and, do we have the revenues in the city to support?
Well, interestingly enough, part of the annexation process is we have to send letters to the police department and the fire department and get their input for the annexation committee. The chief, I can share with you, the chief had a long familiarity with this property because he was the captain at Troop 5 for, I believe, 10 years. And as the owner has stated, there were some problems at that property. He did some research, and just to be honest with you, there have been very, very few police calls in the last, I think he said last
5 years.
5 years. So not only is the property owner telling you what's happened, it's bore out in the data and the research. And the chief would have said, hey, we have problems here. He would raise a red flag for that. So.
Certainly one thing's for sure is momentum builds momentum, and we can spread out the tax liability to the citizens among more people. It keeps our taxes and fees low, so that's an important thing. It's interesting to me as we looked at a crystal ball 5 or 8 years ago, we saw the east side being the one that was going to take off, and it's turned out the west side is actually the one that seems to be seeing the growth, so who would have thought?
And it changes the fire territory as well?
It does not.
Oh, I didn't think so. Okay.
Right, no, this is currently in the, in 87's fire district, and it will remain. The fire chief had no comments.
And I think we may even continue to see different growth, not just so much on 13, but once the Lakeshore Motors property develops, that will get us to that back side of that property on Bridgeville Highway with services too. So I think we could see exponential growth in that area.
All right. Yes, sir.
Dan Henderson, would a parcel be required to annex to get a sewer lateral?
Yes, sir. Currently, our policy is that to receive any service from the city of Seaford, you must annex.
Well, I mean, if you got into an agreement with a parcel that the two parcels say that weren't annexed, but you put the stub there and they could annex then,
In
or
anticipation.
that would induce them to annex.
You're correct.
Same thing we were offering on Middle Ford Road.
Right, I mean, that's, you know, we were gonna run by parcels and put a stub there. They wouldn't get service until they
Right.
annex, but at least the stub would be there. Is that your plan
That's
for this one?
for when you say this one.
For
For
13,
this
for
proposal for,
13 discussion.
Be able
Yeah.
to blanket do this.
We'll run as many as we can that seem appropriate, but anytime we get too far out and we do planning, we tend to, we miss the mark sometimes. So we'll cautiously plan and we'll drop off laterals where we have a communication with the property owner and it makes sense. We'll locate manholes where they make sense to service larger parcels. That's traditionally what we do. Yes, sir.
well,
I think
we're- yeah.
specifically to his question was, would we run this in front of the two properties that aren't
Oh.
currently annexed in the city to give them that
Absolutely.
opportunity,
To
just
create
like
that
we were
Yes, sir,
doing
we
on Middle
would.
Ford Road?
And we do that, yes. We'll run by properties that are not annexed, and yes, we'll
We've done
provide
that
them
with property
connection
staff,
points.
So
actually.
you
Yes.
wouldn't necessarily
Good example.
require them to annex just to get the stub, but they would have to
No.
annex in order to tie in.
You are correct. Yeah,
Right.
it'll be
Yeah.
there for them when
An
they are
incentive,
ready.
right?
Yeah.
We have a similar situation with Hobby Stop when we had to run the water over to the Duck and Car Wash. We needed an easement, and that was an agreement that we had come up with them.
And I think, I don't know this, because a lot of what we do is central water and sewer, but we've heard time and time again, the economic development team, that properties that don't have availability to water and/or sewer, just like this property, are underutilized. He can't do what he would like to do to maximize the use of that property because he has to deal with the water and sewer on site. So once we're there, I think it changes the calculus for the property owners, at least in a little way. So it gives them some options, and it's nice for us to be there, ready to go when they are ready to develop or redevelop.
So what we'd be looking for from this group is to take the same incentive plan to city council for approval, correct? So that the economic development group could offer this blanket.
Just a point of order, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
We did not put that on the agenda,
That's what I was
so
trying to
I'd
say.
suggest we don't make any kind of.
Okay.
But if there's no objection, what staff will do is take that back and we'll refine that plan, look at
Okay.
that, and then take that to council on an agenda for some action and some feedback from the group if there's no other comments or suggestions.
And I would recommend too that we come up with some type of consistent format for people to make their proposal that included the property address and map and parcel and maybe owner's name and, I don't know, maybe like
A template.
a template, maybe that had like a 5-year history of the property, just so,
We have that based on the annexation and then based on, our formalization ask. It's laid out but we can add those pieces to that, but that's.
It's a good
we-
idea.
We
So
use
that
the
this
structure
committee
that
gets
we
it.
require.
Gives you the background, so when
Yep.
you come into, I don't want to say cold, but when you come into it, maybe not having those, because we've had many conversations with
yeah,
the property
because,
owner. Okay.
I come
Yep.
into it cold and I look at it and it's, I don't even know who it's coming from.
Gotcha.
So
Right.
just, it might be helpful.
We can certainly do that.
Okay. Is there any old business?
Nope, there is
Okay.
not.
If there are no other questions or comments from this committee, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Van Henderson, so moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you so much.